Exploration and Creativity Department with the Los Angeles Public Library.
Hi, everybody. Yay Library, I'm Sheridan. I'm also a librarian here at Exploration and Creativity. And we are more than happy to welcome you to today's program, which is LA Made and Clockshop present Take Me to Your River. So, round of applause and we'll get started.
Yeah. Before we begin, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Library Foundation, our behind-the-scenes staff for helping bring the LA Made programs to you. LA Made focuses on the diverse landscape of Los Angeles, highlighting the immense artistic and performance talent that has developed in the course of the city's eclectic history. If you'd like to see more of our amazing programs, please visit our online calendar at lapl.org/events, and for our LA Made programs, visit lapl.org/LAMade. We'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, honor their elders past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information on which territory you may reside on, check out native-land.ca.
Just a couple of things before we get started. Some little housekeeping. Please do us a big favor and silence your electronic devices so that we don't have any distractions during the panel and the screening this afternoon. Also, please take a moment to note the location of exits at the back and the side of the auditorium, just in case of an emergency. We've got an exit back this way and an exit over that way that leads out to the street. If you parked in the garage underneath the library today, you can get your parking ticket validated at the information desk in the main lobby. All you have to do is show us your library card, and parking will only be $1 as long as you parked after 1 p.m.
Yes.
and you leave before 5 p.m. So, if you want to go to dinner after this, you got to pay market price. Please, no eating or drinking in the auditorium unless it's bottled water, and the restrooms are right outside this exit to the right.
And now for today's amazing program. Please join us for a special screening of Gnarly Charlie at times the Los Angeles River, along with 3 other short films produced for this Cultural Atlas project. Following the short films, join us for a conversation with Charly Hinojosa and animator Elizabeth Ito to hear all about the animation process, bike punk, and its relationship to the LA River. Also joining the discussion will be Joyce Cooper, Director of Branch Library Services for Los Angeles Public Library, an Atwater resident. Yay, Joyce! An Atwater resident since 1985, and Dario Herrera from Clockshop. Moderating this discussion will be Eugene Yi, filmmaker and Take Me to Your River project collaborator. So we're going to be showing the screening first, and then our panelists will be coming out afterwards. And here to talk a little bit more about the project is Julia Meltzer. Yay, Julia.
Hi. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here at the Downtown Public Library on a Sunday afternoon with you all. And I thought I'd just give a little bit more background about this project. First of all, Clockshop is a nonprofit arts organization. We are based in Elysian Valley, and we're in our 21st year. We bring arts and culture programs and commissions to public space and public land in LA. I wonder if there was anyone who was at the Kite Festival with us yesterday. Yay, Kite Festival. All right, so thank you for making it. We organized this big, massive event that had thousands of people, and we're here today to talk about something else. So our Take Me to Your River project is a cultural atlas, and what does that mean? It's a collective history of 4 neighborhoods that line the Glendale Narrows section of the LA River. So we're looking at Elysian Valley, Atwater Village, Cypress Park, and Glassell Park. We've been in Elysian Valley for 21 years, and if you know that neighborhood, or if you're from there, then you've probably noticed that things have changed a lot and have been, it's pretty different there than it was 10 years ago. Meaning there's some nice coffee shops, there are more than a few upscale restaurants, all catering to a different demographic of neighborhood community members than were there 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago. So what we're trying to do is to collect histories of longtime residents, family businesses, electeds, and community members who have been involved with LA River revitalization, and elevate the people whose names maybe you don't know or don't associate as much with LA River revitalization. At this point, we've done close to 70 interviews, most of which can be found at takemetoyourriver.org. So today, we're going to show 4 short films, 3 that were made by me, with interviews done by Dario Herrera and actually edited by Catherine Hollander, who joins us today in the audience. And yay. And they offer a glimpse into some of the people and themes that have been arising as we do these interviews and collect this history. So that will be discussed more afterwards with our panelists, and I want to thank a big thanks to the LA Made team and Public Library for having us. It's always such a pleasure to do an event at a public space, public library in Los Angeles. So thank you for coming.
Paime, 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 paime miare, haipe parhamiare we equameha, haipe parhamiare we equameha, paime, 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 paime miare, hia mo, hi tare e mainok, hia mo, pare hokinok, paime, 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 paime miare, haipe parhamiare we equameha, haipe parhamiare we equameha, paime, 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 paime miare.
I'm Greg Kruegermann. We're in the back of one of our original buildings, which was used to make pickles here in Frogtown.
I'm Carl Kruegermann. Our father picked out this area so he could continue the trade he learned in Germany and make pickles here.
The business goes back to my great-great-grandfather. And through the generations, they survived World War I. And after World War II, the factory was in the Russian sector. And socialism, communism, you weren't allowed to have your own business. So we escaped out of East Germany in November of '61, 4 weeks before they built the wall. Back then, you wanted to call it everything but Frogtown.
We called it Silver Lake if we wanted to be cool.
Yeah, if you
or
wanted
we'd
to be
just
cool.
say we live in LA. You'd say you live in LA. You did not say you were from Frogtown, which meant you were associated with the gang.
$13,000 for this property that we're sitting on with a house on it and a little wooden unattached garage. We were three brothers, and we had big buildings and big warehouses. We roller skated, we did things ourselves. The river was off limits.
At some point, they really fenced in the river. They didn't want you to trespass, to go into the river zone at all. And we wouldn't say L.A. River, we just call it the river.
The river, yeah.
Down by the river. You know, we gave everyone a chance who came to the door. If somebody had a felony record, it doesn't matter.
Everybody was from the neighborhood because they could walk here. The moms who walked their kids to Alessandro, stopping on their way back and working for 5 hours bottling something.
Last California farmer we had was something like 10, 15 years ago, and then everything shifted to Mexico, and it was really sad to get away from the California cucumbers. They couldn't get the labor to do the work anymore. Everything keeps getting further and further away, and the transportation gets more complicated. If this business was to continue, you'd have to move down to Arizona or Texas.
Yeah.
On the other side of the border, where you could build a beautiful, big, modern plant. The cucumbers come over the border, they're there the next morning. I kind of think back about it 10, 20 years ago. It was getting harder and harder to get people to do this type of work.
It can't go on. We just can't go on, and you know, physically, you know, if I keep going that hard, you know, drop dead here next year, 2 years, it's over anyway.
Who better to dismantle this business than him and I? I mean, we know what's in these buildings, we know what to do with these machines, we know what, you know, to treat the customers. To see these properties, these homes be $1 million, we never foresaw that. We never saw that coming. This pickle factory doesn't fit into this neighborhood anymore. If you wanted to, let's say, turn the whole block into a pickle company and just do massive production and get trucks in and out of here with the cars parked to go to the bars and everything, it wouldn't work anymore. The people you knew that lived here for 20, 30 years, all the families that grew up here, that a lot of them can't afford to live here anymore. There was a lot of anti-gentrification, people trying to slow things down, but you can't stop that momentum. You might be able to like make it go around that way for a while, but if it's gonna work that way forward, it's just gonna happen. You can't stop it.
It was great to see your stuff on the shelf. It was great to be on TV. It was great to kind of think you're a little bit of famous. Yeah, walk into the store, that's me right there. Those are my pickles, which is really, really cool.
It was a conversation piece. You'd go to a party and there would be 5 doctors there, but you were the guy who made pickles.
Here we go. We're gonna go on our route. We're gonna go down Avenue 28. When I was a kid, there was a lot of accidents on the street. We learned to call it the Cypress Avenue Speedway because everyone was racing down the street. Oh, there's Danny right there. Hey, Danny. Hey, what's up, man? We're gonna make a left here on Gay Street. We're a small little community. Linda's house right here. And then we're coming up here to Margarita's house, the old senior. I used to come and pick up her grocery list, and her groceries right here. So I'll stop here, pick up the list, get the cash, get back on my bike, and then turn here on Cypress Avenue and Gay Street, and then head down to the market. Then the old Divine Savior Church here. I came to school here. I got my catechism and stuff like that here. So here on Cypress and Jeffries, I would hang a right. And I love going down the street here because and it still is, and it used to be, and it's always been such a beautiful looking street. You just saw the pride and people who live here. They had these nice craftsman homes. Some of the old families still live here. I did see some for sale signs. I have a friend, Marisol, that we used to skate together when we were kids, and she's from this house right here. And there's a combination of like Asians and Chicanos that live here. Also Fredo's dad. He doesn't remember me at all. It's been a long time. There's fences up now, but back then there was no fences. These homes are selling for $1 million today. $1 million. Here in our little old Cypress Park because of the economy and gentrification and all that. If you went down Avenue 28 and like down, you would hit pockets of gang members. And sometimes they hung out here too. See, for sale. That little house right there for sale. What's up, guys? Llevo años de no venir por aquí. What's up, Mario? Mario, you look the same, man. You look sharp. I'm 47 years old. I was 10 years old when I used to come around here. That guy's still there doing the same old thing, just drinking, having a great life. Then I was just turned in here into the market, the old Figueroa market. Now it's Harbor Freight. And next door to here, that was actually a little Mexican restaurant. And the wing stop there was a pharmacy that was owned by a Chinese family. And the Panda Express there was actually a music store where you bought CDs and cassette tapes. And then the donut shop was always there. There's things that change and there's things that don't change. Like those guys over there. Same old traffic. So I'll go up right here on Cypress Avenue, head north. And just enjoy the ride. Okay. What's up, dude? No one's coming, no one's coming. No one's coming. That's cool.
Le caiga a mi fiesta paisa, hay que todos bailar y gozar. Adelante, caminante, pedaleando, roleando por el paisaje, paisaje.
So that's the callus in my hands. I seen an old school paisa do that. I'm like, what? And I was like, wait, I got these. I'm Gnarly Charlie. My real name is Carlos Hinojosa. I teach gymnastics and parkour to at-risk youth. I'm a street athlete. Started with skateboarding, moved into gymnastics, parkour, and then leaked into graffiti. I learned gymnastics at Aliso Pico in Boyle Heights. I went there because I wanted to be like Spider-Man. Back before bridges, I would cross from Cypress Park to Frogtown through like this rock hopping section. And if you mess up, you'll get wet, but it's cool because I always wear huaraches anyway. But the fun part was to try to make it across without getting the huaraches wet. Let me see what you got. Let me see what you brought to trade. Is it worth it? You getting paid? This system gonna fade away. I realized there's not enough bike lanes, and I was really angry. And I was like, I can get mad and write poems, or I could start a punk band. Whatever my ideas are, my poems don't sound as cool, but when there's like guitar riff and like some power chord and like beat, it's a little easier to swallow. So I started this band called Pedal Strike with some of my best friends I used to ride bikes with. Most, if not all, the songs are like about a bicycle, but you'll never hear the word bike. Kind of talk about like my Iron Horse or my Pegasus. You know, like kind of personify it into something cooler. And it really is. It's just 3 triangles that gets you around the city. The clash, right? Puts you on game. You're like, first you're just bobbing your head and like, oh, he's spitting some facts. You know, like we need to stand up for our rights. But then that was all from the UK though. Then I realized, oh shit, I got a whole other identity. I wanted to stay away from it because punk and like ISA didn't go. But then I'm like, but yes, they do. In the turntable, this event, I called it Barter Town. And we encouraged people to bring something to trade. It was beautiful. People brought things and there was no money involved. We activated like this open land that wasn't being used. I had a lot of the POC homies pull up that I used to ride bikes with, the punk rockers, and it was like everyone coming together. Even some cholos pulled up. It was beautiful. And I hate to say it, but I think I inspired a lot of people to party there because now there's people partying there that I don't even know who they are anymore. I'm like, all right, cool. Gotten through graffiti through skateboarding because I would like mob the name of my skate team, Skate Locals, on my grip tape. And it just naturally lended to using the world as my canvas. I would do the same thing here and there. Hey. Luckily, I've only been shot at once. And, you know, just life was crazier back then, I think. Back in the day, the homie Yoshi lived on Drew Street. But at the time, like early 2000s, Drew Street was like, you know, on gangland. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but you needed to have like a green light to get in there. Like you knew somebody.
And it's not like that today.
No, I'm sure everybody walks on Drew now, walking their dogs. I think they have like yoga and gastro pubs. You know, sometimes you're craving something. I'm not craving yoga. Support gente, you know? Instead of going to the deli or the bistro, go to La Marqueta. Check in with La Virgen right there. Go to La Guadalupana. Like there's still a lot of brown spaces where locals are holding it down. It's nice to like walk through those places again with a fresh set of eyes and seeing it and being like, whoa, I'm taller. That's why I still love living here, because I'm like in here like for a minute. Don't get me wrong, I've traveled, I've experienced different places, but the further I go, the more I realize this is where it's at.
Mis pies dando vueltas, la alma contenta, lo que plantas cosechas, así que está trucha, pero sigue la lucha. Y sigue. ¡Au! Te van a buscar y no te van a querer. Y ven conmigo al anochecer. Cambiar la mente es la misión.
And now let's welcome to the stage Charlie, Elizabeth, Joyce, Dario, and Eugene. Give it a yeah, come on.
I signed a death waiver, so it's cool.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, let's give it up one more time, like for Charlie and Elizabeth for that amazing work. Just want to thank you for spending a funky gray May day here indoors with us. And for starters, I'll just introduce the panelists. We can start at the end. Of course, now it's this very modern moment where I'm just like, where did I put my notes? Why can't I find them on my phone? Now I just look like I'm wasting time. Okay. So Dario Herrera is a multidisciplinary historian and community organizer from Northeast Los Angeles. His upbringing and experiences have inspired his intersecting passions in food justice, educational reform, and archival work. Cognizant of the power of history, his work is grounded in a desire to understand, question, and propose new definitions of heritage in marginalized communities. Dario is with Clockshop and is one of the leads of the Take Me to Your River project, which is responsible for a lot of this work here. So Dario, nice to have you here. Next to Dario is Joyce Cooper. Joyce is the director of branches in the Los Angeles Public Library. She's worked for the library for over 24 years. That's a lot of love spread through the libraries. It's just, and values being able to serve the residents of Los Angeles through the services provided by the library. Born and raised in the city of Los Angeles, Joyce grew up in Koreatown before moving to Atwater Village in 1985, before it was cool. And Elizabeth Ito is right here next to me, is a writer, director, and animator for animated television series such as Adventure Time. Shout out to Adventure Time, by the way. SpongeBob SquarePants, that too, and is the creator of the Netflix series City of Ghosts. Yeah, give it up. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Elizabeth's projects draw inspiration from her upbringing and memories in this eternal city. She currently works at Chromosphere, an international design and animation studio that explores the space between art and technology. So Elizabeth was the director of the short about Charlie, as you all could see. So let's give it up for Elizabeth as well. And Carlos Hinojosa, also known as Gnarly Charlie, was born and raised in Highland Park, and over the years became known as an activist, anarchist, punk, rocker, cyclist, parkourer. That's a multi-hyphenate right there. He served on the Cypress Park Neighborhood Council and has organized several Bartertown festivals at Taylor Yard. He's currently the lead singer of Pedal Strike, as you all saw, a bike punk band with roots in Northeast Los Angeles. So, let's give it up one more time. So I figured we'd start with Charlie and Elizabeth to talk about that incredible short that you all put together. So Charlie, for starters. So we learned a little bit about how you got into punk, but we didn't hear as much about really how you got into your bike and just bicycle culture. So I'm curious if we could hear you talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So first of all, thank you to everyone that showed up. You're amazing. If you're one of my students, you don't owe me 10 push-ups next week. So I was going to school at the time, and I was borrowing my parents' car. And every day, I would fight traffic. And around the dinner table, we would all before we had food, before praying, it'd be oh, today I got cut off by this guy, or I couldn't find parking here. And that was not the route I wanted to take, so bicycles were just a very simple way, a healthy way, and good for the planet. And I was able to get anywhere in the city, so I'd started with commuting, and then I found out about night rides, and I'm what, people are doing this for fun? And that's when everything changed, and I went down that rabbit hole. I see a lot of fellow cyclists here. Shout out to y'all, travel safe.
This isn't the first time that you've seen this short, as far as I know. So, but I'm curious what your impression of it was and what it felt like to see yourself up on the screen like that, sort of immortalized in animated form like this.
It was rad. I didn't notice that you did my bike twice, or you did a different bike, right? There's a clip.
Maybe, yeah, probably. It's
for a split second of my other bike, and I'm what? I didn't know that was in there. So, very detail oriented. The second time watching it, I bootlegged it, so I focused on that this time. And yeah, the more I see it, the more I realize how special it is to be able to grow up in the city and have the opportunities that not everyone had. So I'm grateful for that.
Wait, so just so when everybody else gets to watch it again, what's the difference between the two bikes so we can all look out for the difference between the two?
Okay, so I have like my crazy long chopper, like art piece, and then I have a more practical commuter, but it's still pretty rad. It's like a basic bike, I guess, but to me it was like, oh wow, you took the effort to do another set of triangles. Thank you.
And I know in past screenings you've also had like the bike collective that you're a part of come out to the screenings as well, and it sounds like some members are here. I'm just curious what their reaction might have been to the short too.
Well, Bike Oven and other bike folk have always supported each other. It's like, I would say we're all spokes in the great wheel of things. And I've been supported by them, and I've supported them. It's like very symbiotic, like we all help each other out.
And what was the name of the, sorry, could you just
Let's
say
see,
the name
I
again?
recognize some Bike Oven gangs, Poco Pocho, Ales, Fabrica. There's a couple of psycho gangs here that I know. Trash Panda in the building. I don't recognize you with the mask. Yeah, so I'm happy to see the community pull up. Thank you.
So Elizabeth, if we could talk a little bit about how the piece came together. But first of all, you know, I don't know if you all have seen City of Ghosts. It's got a beautiful and very similar aesthetic approach as the short that you did about Charlie. So first of all, I'm wondering if you could just describe that approach a bit and how you came to want to tell stories that way.
It's pretty much like a pseudo documentary for most of the stuff that I do. So like one of the first shorts that I did that way was about my brother. It's called Welcome to My Life, and it was first it was a student film, then it was a Cartoon Network short. So for that one, it was like talking about how my brother felt like an awkward dude because he's kind of this bigger Asian dude, and describing how he's like really introverted. And so I made him a monster in high school because I thought about like what's the most awkward thing you could be, I guess, and then I was like excited to turn him into a monster, I guess. And I was really inspired by things where people did that. Like there was this short called Creature Comforts by this guy, Nick Park, who took interviews with people and turned them into kind of like these zoo animals talking about what they thought about being in the zoo, I think. And I thought that was really clever and entertaining. And I think I find a lot of like cleverness and entertainment in people. I'm just like, this is something that I want to make a film about. And I like making films about other people because like a lot of animation people, I think like we like performing, but we don't like it being ourselves in front of people. We like to highlight other things like motion, and yeah, for me it's like how much I like hearing the stories of other people, and I find that interesting. It's something where I'd rather talk about that than about me. So,
as a documentary filmmaker myself, I totally understand that desire. But as far as the process for this went, then could you just tell us how it came together? Like, where did it start, and what were some of the steps along the way to finish the piece?
I think it started with I needed a job, so I like reached out to Clockshop and I was like, "Hey, I see you're hiring something that I don't even know if I'm qualified to do that. I'm probably not, but I really like Julia. I really like the organization, like everything they do. So I was like, okay, well, if there's something I can do, I figured they'll get back to me. And so we kind of talked about what could I do, like animation-wise, with Clockshop and with Take Me to Your River, and then I met Dario and heard a few of the interviews, and then I think as I was starting to talk to them was right when when you guys met Charly. I think Charly was coming out of Clockshop, and I was like, who's this guy? Yeah, he is really cool. And then I think I listened to your interview, and I was like, oh, this feels like a friend. Honestly, it was this part where I think you got choked up about something, and you really like reminded me of my brother a little bit, and I was like, oh, yeah, I gotta find a way to do this. And it was hard because like you listed off so many things about Charlie, and that's exactly, I was like, I don't know what to focus on in this short. We don't have enough time. Like there's not enough time to talk about all that. Yeah, I don't know. And then it turned into what it did.
I mean, I think in the process of putting something together like this, and well, I want to take a second to shout out also Virginia Espino, who's one of the other collaborators that we have on this project and who did the interview with Charlie. And I think, yeah, it was a really beautiful conversation, and Charlie got really emotional during parts of it, so it was really
Cried
something.
tears of joy.
But Elizabeth, I wonder if there's anything from that interview, you know, stuff gets left on the cutting room floor all the time. So I wonder if there's any stories that come to mind for you that you remember that you're like, oh, I wish I could have gotten that in, or that have just stayed with you, even if they weren't like that.
I mean, one particular part you mentioned, like that he was in neighborhood council, so there was a lot of interesting stuff that I think you had to share about all that I wish there was time to talk about that aspect of stuff. Maybe there still will be, I don't know, but like, yeah, that's definitely a huge part where I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a whole nother aspect of Charlie that is such an interesting situation. Yeah, a movie. We should do a feature.
Well, Charlie, I mean, while we're on the topic, did you want to mention anything about your time on the neighborhood council? If you could just, yeah, give us a quick rundown on what that experience was like and what it was.
Okay, so I was on the neighborhood council, and I learned that if you want to get anything done, you should start a committee. Because if you're on the council, they call it a chair for a reason. Because you just sit and listen to people complain. And some of the OGs told me, like, the best way to move forward with any plan of action is to start a committee. Because they're there for one thing and one thing only. As a neighborhood council member, you're there to listen to everyone's grievances, like someone complaining about the church bells being too loud, or things like that. So I learned that this is we're all really connected. This, even though it's like a big spread out city, like we all know each other somehow.
No, that's actually a great transition and segue to want to ask Joyce to ask you a few questions, actually, because I think one of the aims of the project has really been to make sure that people know about stories like Charlie's, folks in the community whose stories don't often get talked about, and especially with gentrification going as rapidly as it is, that might just fade, you know, into memory, into the abyss, into the void. So Joyce actually grew up in the neighborhood, has a longtime resident, and we wanted to just get some of your thoughts too about the neighborhood. Like, what was it like when you first moved there, and what's changed?
So I moved to Atwater Village in 1985, and then I'm going to give you a clue. You all guess my age right now. I was 13, so I've been living there for 40 years in August. And like Eugene said, I grew up in Koreatown in an apartment building, and so when we moved to Atwater, my mom bought a house, because at that time, Atwater was still really affordable. It was, you know, where you went to go buy a house. And I remember moving into the neighborhood, and there were a lot of Mexican and Filipino families in Atwater. Some of the white families that were there were old white families that had been there from like the 20s, and they'd been living there forever. So it was a really big mix of people. Atwater had a big gang problem between the Rascals and like the Pino Real, the Filipino gang. It was really kind of a sketchy neighborhood, but I loved it, and it was like moving to the wilderness because there were all kinds of wild animals I had never seen before, like possums, and at the time Atwater had a lot of frogs, and so did Frogtown. So I remember the frogs, and it was just really cool. Like I got to see so many different things, and the river. I didn't even know there was a river in LA until I moved to Atwater Village. I'm like, what's this? And I was telling Eugene when we first moved to Atwater, the river was not a place you wanted to go. I think in one of the films they talked about how it was fenced off. I mean, they basically told us don't go in the river because it had a lot of factory runoff from like places upriver, and the river just smelled horrible. And it had a really weird color, and they just would always tell us don't go in the river. We would still walk to the river, though, and just kind of observe it. And there were a few ducks and stuff, but nothing like what's there now. It was a really cool place. I loved growing up there. Even though there was, like, drive-by shootings and graffiti and the usual stuff that comes with that, to us, it felt safe. We walked everywhere. We go to Vince's Market, which is still there. We still, patronize them. And it was just a really cool place to live. And like I think you mentioned, there weren't a lot of fences. I don't remember there being fences. And now I think with gentrification, that's the one defining factor, I think, in Atwater particularly. If you see a wooden fence that's like horizontal, it's a new person that moved into the neighborhood. It like the telltale giveaway. And I think the community, the flavor has changed. I try to say hi when I go on walks and stuff to people I pass on the street. Some people say hi, some people don't. It's just very strange. It's a different mix now. A lot of the older families have moved away, but my mom, she's Mexican-American. Well, she's Mexican, and she only speaks Spanish, and so she still has friends in the neighborhood that she gets together with, but it's not the same as it used to be.
What do you wish that some of these people who are coming in building fences, like what do you wish they knew about the neighborhood? What do you feel like is missing from their sense of connection to that space?
I think how I wish they would get out of their fence, I feel like the only time they leave and actually commingle with other people is if they're at the farmer's market or something that's super popular. But just walking around the neighborhood and stuff, I don't think they get the sense of how real, that's a real community. And many of us have been living there for all of our lives, and we grew up together, and high school friends live there, and we know the families and their stories, and I don't think that they're gonna get that same experience because they don't live their lives outside of their homes. I think they commute, they come, they maybe walk their dog, but they don't really interact with other people, and so they don't really get to know their neighbors as well as we used to know our neighbors. And I try, we know, I rent now. I live on one block over from where my mom's house is, and I try to, I know my neighbors because I make a point of knowing my neighbors, and a lot of them have been there, but there's an apartment building right next to me, and they're constantly turning over, all the time, and I don't know the people that live there because they're always moving out. So I wish, people had that real sense of community and really understand that Atwater is a really, really special place to have grown up and to live. I feel like it's a little slice of LA that people, sometimes I don't drive, I take the bus, and sometimes when I have to take Uber or something and the Uber drivers take me home, they're so surprised that Atwater is there. A lot of them don't even know that it's there. And they're like, where are we? And I try to explain to them kind of where it is, and they're like, oh, okay.
No, and amidst all that change, I'm glad you mentioned Vince's Market, which is also one of the places that are profiled in the Take Me to Your River project. Yeah, I did the interview with George Magallon, and the sandwiches there are still the bomb, and also absurdly cheap. In case anybody needs a $5 sandwich that has no right to be as delicious as it is.
When we started going to their ham and cheese was 50 cents. Now it's $2.50.
which is still a great deal. But to that end, Dario, actually, I guess before getting into your experience, because Dario also grew up in these neighborhoods, I'd love to just hear just more broadly about kind of what the inspiration behind the Take Me to Your River project was. What was it that sort of brought it forward as something that you and that Julia and that Clockshop really wanted to make an area of focus?
Yeah, I think something that Julia and I have been thinking about a lot is that we get asked questions if this project is a way to stop gentrification or a way to alleviate some of the symptoms of gentrification. And I think the more that we get deeper into this project, in a way, I don't want to say we're digging our own grave or we're accepting that this process is already happening, because it is, but in a way it's a memorial to some of the memories or some of the histories that have existed in these neighborhoods. And kind of like what you were saying, Joyce, I think it's also an excellent way to speak to each other and to create these interpersonal relationships with some of our neighbors. Because I grew up in Elysian Valley, which is one of the neighborhoods that we're focusing on. Actually, I think this panel is like the 4 neighborhoods that we focused on. And my memories of growing up in Elysian Valley is that all of my family members lived 1 block away from each other. We're all, if you know a little bit about the history of Elysian Valley, they used to call it La Embajada, the embassy, because a lot of the people that lived there were from the same town in Mexico, San Martin de Hidalgo, in Jalisco. And so all of them, one came, and then they all came, and then my dad came, and then my mom found her way there, and then I came. And so this tight-knit community that I was so used to seeing all the time, as I grew older and I moved away, and then I came back, that's something that I definitely missed. And when we speak to other people who grew up in these neighborhoods, they also recognize that I feel like there's a coldness that exists there, and there seems to be 2 different neighborhoods that exist. It's like neighborhoods for like, I guess like the oldies, and neighborhoods for the people who are coming in and are trying to create this community for themselves. And so I think this project, in a way, it's a platform for some of these stories, so that they feel that they're also included in the narrative of these neighborhoods. And through this project, we've been able to meet people, like those are on this panel, but also just other people whose stories we've never would have been able to hear or able to listen. And I think before I started this project, I was definitely a little bit more chattier. I think I would always talk a lot. But afterwards, I think I've definitely learned to understand the value of listening to people and just knowing when to be quiet and let somebody talk. Because the process of when we interview people, it's very short. It's like an hour and a half, an hour. It's usually the first time that we meet somebody and they just let it all out. And like, for example, Charlie cried. I don't think Charlie knew he was gonna cry when he came to the interview.
I didn't plan that, it just happened.
But it's a common occurrence. People just come and they just talk. They talk and talk and talk and talk. And sometimes it's like, okay, like when are you gonna wrap it up? But other times it's like keep talking, because this is the only outlet that they have to share some of these frustrations or some of these emotions that they have. Because they feel that they don't have a way to stop what's happening to their neighborhood. They're becoming strangers in their own communities.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to that lack of connection that people have, and it makes me really grateful to have been able to be a collaborator on this too, because it's kind of what we were talking about before, these acts of connection that we have, getting people's stories are forms of community building as well, I feel. But I wonder, actually, Charlie too, I mean, you grew up, or you moved to Cypress Park when you were a teenager. Yeah, what was it like back then, and how has it changed now? Like, I mean, we got some of your thoughts through the film, but just curious if there's anything else you want to add when it comes to that.
There used to be like this empty lot of land that I would play with. It's like condominiums now. Like slivers of land that were kind of like open are now being capitalized on, literally. And that does kind of disconnect you from your neighbor a bit, because they build up walls, like metaphorical walls, physical walls. And I just miss like Doña Carlota, the neighbor, spraying me with like the garden hose, like, get off my property, for skating, like little things like that, where it's like now it's like they'll just like shut the door, like, oh, pretend we don't exist, kind of. So I definitely miss like the gente from the community. And that's probably why I decided to like grow my hair out and like wear textiles or like rock huaraches. It's like a form of resistance to me. Yeah.
I've never really thought of like someone telling you to get off their lawn basically being a kind of community building in its way. Yeah, but it speaks to something.
Yeah, now you can't even get on that lawn because they put up a huge fence. So yeah, things like that.
No, it's true. It's true. And I think, you know, as we talk about community, you know, I think we all appreciate that right now we're all living through a really tumultuous time, locally, nationally, globally, for all sorts of reasons. And I'll just say that for myself, like, this project has been just one of the most meaningful things that I've had the privilege to work on, because it's allowed me to really connect locally with community and be inspired by people like Charlie, by people like Elizabeth, by all of you, like Joyce and Dario, Julia. So to that end, I was wondering, whether, I mean, we can start with Elizabeth. Like, in this moment, like, where are you finding community and what's inspiring you from what you've been finding?
I don't know. I keep thinking about how I was supposed to answer this this question that you were going to ask, you know? And I do think it's been like a lifeline to be able to work on these with like Julia. I don't know. Just for me, mentally, the way that I've been coping with everything is to focus on, to have creative things to focus on. If I hadn't had this story to kind of focus on, like, how are we going to tell it, how are we going to make it work, like, I don't know what I would do, honestly, right now to cope, because it's hard on a day-to-day basis to hear about things that are happening. Yeah, a lot of it, all of it. So it's been doing that, and like also specifically, if I think about it, it's like through that I was able to bring my kids to Charlie's class. Like, they started going to learn parkour from him because when I was listening to his interview, I was like, oh yeah, this is something that I feel like they would like, and so let's try it out. So I got to know him, and like, the library is a crazy important place to me, and so even just the ability to like broadcast it through the library is amazing. Like, I used to come here to hear other people be on this stage talking about their work that was inspiring to me as a child, and to have that opportunity to do that in this way is like, I don't know, it's just been great. It's been like an incredible gift that yeah, I'm really grateful for.
And Charlie, same question to you. I mean, you spoke about gente before, and just what it means to be like in community in that way. Like, where are you finding that community these days, and what's moving you these days?
Any bike co-op, like the bike oven, the kitchen, or microwave, if you're into that stuff, is a very healthy educational space to spend time at. Because not only am I like de-stressing, and it's kind of therapeutic, but I'm also fixing my bicycle and making community with friends. So co-ops like that are very important. You should go to one.
I mean, and it becomes a method of resistance too. I think, like you've been mentioning, like here and there. And oh, was there something more you wanted to
I was just gonna say, I agree.
And Joyce, I know, you know, part of the tumultuousness for us here in LA has, of course, just been the fires that were that just ravaged the neighborhoods earlier this year. I was wondering, like, yeah, if you wanted to share some of what the relief efforts have been from your position as director of branches in the library.
Yeah, so as all of you know, we lost one of our library branches in the fire, so the Palisades Branch Library burned down. And it was really traumatizing for all of us. I remember watching the video of it burning and crying, just crying, because I couldn't believe that, you know, this horrible thing had happened. But shortly thereafter, you know, you had to figure out, okay, what's next? And, you know, I think the first thing was assessing our staff and seeing, okay, this horrible thing happened, who else lost, you know, something? And it turned out that several of our employees also lost their homes, including a couple that worked at Palisades. So trying to figure out, okay, you know, like what do they need? Like, you know, and I think, you know, right now, this fire has been a terrible thing, but at the same time, I think it's shown me the community that exists in LA, because as soon as that happened, we started getting emails and offers and calls from systems all over, and just people in the city wanting to know, how could we help you? What do you need? What, you know, like, and that was really nice to hear. Now it's, you know, trying to find a way forward. We will rebuild. We're gonna just need to figure out how we do that. And in the interim, just trying to gauge, okay, right now there really isn't a community up there to serve, because everybody's still trying to figure out, you know, what they're going to do, what they're going to, you know, rebuild or not. So, you know, we haven't really propped up any temporary services, but once we kind of can sense that, you know, the community's starting to come back, and we have a really good relationship with the community. We have a very strong friends group that still lives there, so they're kind of our you know, our gauge of like, okay, people are going to start coming back now. Then I think we're going to focus on trying to provide temporary services until we can figure out how to rebuild and rebuild better and stronger. and just try to, you know, establish that presence. Our library was right in the village. And so, you know, we were very central to that community, and just seeing how important that library was to so many people has been really heartwarming for me, because we do our job every day, and, you know, we don't all, because we're not on the front line, we don't get to hear from our patrons about, you know, what the service means to them, but actually getting to hear from people, oh, you know, my kids went to this library, my grandkids go to this library now, like that really touches me.
I'm glad you're able to speak on that a little bit, because I know, you know, people, I mean, you mentioned this earlier, I mean, there was a conversation about rebuilding a gym, but like not necessarily the libraries, and libraries are just so central. I mean, I think, like Elizabeth was saying, like, you know, grew up coming to these spaces and hearing people speak, and they really do exist as public spaces in some of the most important ways possible. So yeah, no, thank you for all of your efforts on that. And Dario, I think we'll end with you. In terms of, yeah, just some of these themes we've been talking about, community and inspiration, but just through the storytelling work that you and Julia and Clockshop have been engaged in, through the other projects that you all have been engaged in, like, how have you been making it through these times?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you think about oral histories, there's an aura of like difficulty that people associate to it, but it's not that hard. It's just like, if I ask Joyce like a question, that's an oral history. Her response is an oral history. And I guess I'll close off with, so I grew up in these neighborhoods, but even though I grew up here, I think that gentrification has made people distant from each other. The other day I was walking on the bike path, and I saw my old landlord. I didn't rent, but my parents rent. Her name was Chelo, and I went up to her and I was like, Chelo, Chelo, and she kept walking by me, and I was like, that's your name, Chelo? And she had like a stick. And she was like, I was like, you're gonna hit me with a stick? But she had the stick for dogs. Anyways, I kept saying her name. I was like, Chelo, Chelo. And then she finally turned around and I was like, it's me. Like, Dario, it's me. And then she's like, oh my God, I didn't know who you were. I didn't recognize you. Because when I was living with her, I was like 8. I was like this tall, right? But I think my little message for all of you today is like, when you are in these neighborhoods, whether it's your original neighborhood or the one that you live in today, don't be afraid to speak to people or to talk to people, even if you get rejected 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times. Try again, right? Because these are the basis of our relationships with each other. And if we don't have these relationships or these community networks, unfortunately, we're only gonna see them in times of like disasters, right? My mom always says like, and be that, right? Like, do it when you're alive, because when you're dead, like what? Then what about, what's the point in that? Right? So when we have, I guess in a way, this project has been allowing me to reconnect to these communities as an adult. Because when you're a kid, it's really easy to just make friends. But as an adult, it's a little bit more difficult. And through this project, speaking with my neighbors, now on the same eye level, maybe even looking down, it's been able to really allow myself to grow. So, yeah. I encourage you all to check out our other stories at takemetoriver.org. And keep an eye out. I think there's going to be another. No, keep an eye out. There might be something coming in the future.
Well, there will be more coming in the future, no matter what. So I think on that sentiment, and with Dario's mom's beautiful words, like, let's just give our panelists one last round of applause. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll come out and can we have one more round of applause for everybody and for the films? Okay, thank you so much for attending today's LA Made program. The success of LA Made and literally all of our library programs could not happen without the support of you, our patrons. So thank you so much. And one more.
In case you want to stick around and keep hanging out with us here at the Los Angeles Public Library, I just want to let you know that starting at 3:30 on the second floor in our Art, Music, and Recreation department, we're going to have an author, G.A. Kwan, in conversation with Helen Rhee, who is a book talker. And it's called I'll Love You Forever, Notes from a K-Pop Fan. So in case you want to stick around, head up to the second story. There's more for you always here at LAPL.
Thank you so much. Have a rest of the day.